You are supposed to take care of the way that I feel, and you failed me, and you didn't do that.
What love means to you and what love means to me are probably two very different things. How does an avoidant man show love?
Avoidant men are man-children. We should put them on an island somewhere and portion them away from humanity.
Those folks want love just as much as we do. They're people, they're a person just like I am, looking for love and going about it in the wrong way.
Because I keep hearing about this mysterious, secure person. Show them to me.
Is there a trap that I can lay on my front lawn for a secure man? Do I put a bowl of potato salad to catch him?
How do I find them so that we can all live with a loving, secure partner? Tell me.
Welcome back to the I Wish You Knew podcast, where we dissect relationships to find the truth. I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist, and with me, as always, is my gorgeous co-host, Andrey Korikov. Look at that hair. Look at that hair. Audience, please rate his hair in the comments. 1 out of 10. What are we doing
Look
here?
at my hair. Look at Rikki's hair.
Rikki's
She's
hair is
amazing.
fantastic
Look at that.
today.
I'm
It's so cool.
I'm still looking at your hair. It's a 10. I get to vote. That's
Oh, well, thank you, Rikki.
So
I think
today-
yours is a 12.
Today in this Love Fest, we have Rikki Cloos with us, who does a lot of what I do, but specifically focusing, and I love this so much, is focusing in really on helping those anxiously attached people who are wounded in relationships or nervous in relationships. And one thing that I specifically, when I was looking at your page and really thinking, like, what could we talk about? And you mentioned it briefly earlier before the show, was you don't demonize avoidant people, which is fantastic. I love that you don't allow that. Talk to us a little bit. We'll dive into Anxious. We'll dive into your book. We'll dive into everything that you're doing. But talk to us a little bit about what that tendency you have seen to demonize that avoidant, and not to demonize even anxious people, but where do you see that coming from? Help the avoidant people maybe in the audience understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, I will. When I started this journey, it came from pain, as most of this stuff does. I was freshly divorced. I was married for 12 years, and I was freshly divorced, and I had newly identified one of the reasons that we got divorced as being the anxious and avoidant dynamic, where one partner is pushing and the other partner's pulling, and they just can't quite meet up. And when you're standing there in the blast zone post-divorce, there's a lot of anger. You know, there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of anger. And I remember feeling like, gosh, I recognized myself as a severely anxious attacher, and all I wanted was love. That's what I told myself in my head. And all he wanted was distance. That's what it seemed like, you know? And once I really dug into this stuff, I came to realize that the avoidants really want love too. They're just going about it in a completely, a way that's not working out well for them, as well as the anxious person. And realizing more about avoidant attachment, reading more about it, I realized that those folks want love just as much as we do. And from that point on, I knew I don't need to have any angry feelings toward them. They're people, they're a person just like I am, looking for love and going about it in the wrong way.
I wish I could hire you just to come into my comment sections and just rebut against the women in there who are anxiously attached, because as you know, I specialize in attachment, but whereas you have gone into anxious side, I find myself more and more being guided into the avoidant side, helping women understand avoidant men, helping avoidant men understand themselves. And my comment sections are filled with men saying, "Oh, this is me. This is what I've always felt." But then women coming in and saying, "Avoidant men are man-children. We should put them on an island somewhere and portion them away from humanity." And like, it's this horrible, nasty conversations happening over there. What? Here's a big question. What one piece of advice do you think you might give to anxiously attached women who might have that feeling in their heart? Maybe they don't embody it and say it quite yet, but as you did your own healing from those wounds, what one piece of advice would you give to anxiously attached women who are angry at avoidant men?
I actually have an answer ready to go for this. I got this piece of advice from my mom. My mom has what she calls in her head a shrink ray. And she likes to take anybody that hurts her, and in her mind, she shrinks them down to a child. And she imagines that child has been hurt in some way. And from that hurt, they develop a way of relating to people that's not helpful. And mom's like, whenever you find yourself really angry, like, why did they do this to me? Shrink them. Because it's really hard to be angry at a 3-year-old who's just crying out for love and hurting everyone around them because they don't know how to act to get that love. I try to do that. I shrink people on a regular basis, and it helps me find empathy in a much bigger way than if I didn't do that.
Rikki, can I ask, how many people do you shrink per day?
Well, thankfully, I work at home alone. So let's see. I shrink a lot of the folks in my comment section on my page. I have to shrink my partner on a daily basis, probably.
Oh, interesting.
Which I think helps our relationship quite a bit.
Okay. What is the relationship with you and your partner like? Because, you've talked a lot about your anxious healing journey. Does he share the same journey? So coming in from the different side, is he from the other side?
Yeah. he's from the other side. That's what I love so much about us.
Forbidden love.
Yeah. And he's from all the way in the corner of the other side. So, you'll go online and you'll take attachment tests. There are some really wonderful tests. The one from, I think it's University of Illinois is my favorite one. Yourpersonality.net, in case anybody's trying to find it. And that, I love that test because it throws you on a quadrant. Yes, please do. There's a quadrant. And of course, in one quadrant here, we've got the secure attachers. And then you've got the poor, disorganized attachers who have problems with from both sides. But when I took that test, I was all the way up in the corner as the most anxious you could possibly be. And when I somehow convinced this super gorgeous, mysterious guy I was dating to take the test, he was all the way in the corner as an avoidant. And I thought, oh no. I was like, I've done this before. We've got our work cut out for us. And that was 5 years ago. Now we are engaged and we have the most beautiful relationship. So
congratulations.
A message of hope for those anxious and avoidant couples. It's possible to find your way out of this.
Now,
what made you stay when you had that, oh my God, connection? Why? What made you look at this and say, you know what? I am going to do this. I don't know if I'm going to say do this again because I don't know that history, but at least I'm going to do this time. And what gave you the hope to say a guy who's all the way on the other end of the spectrum is going to be able to understand you, accept you, and also, more importantly, provide for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I didn't know with certainty that it was possible to move all the way into the secure quadrant then. But what I did know was that I was looking at a man who was very open to talking about these things. And that was new. That was new for me to be able to sit down and say, hey, I'm reading about this thing called attachment theory all the time. I'm recognizing some stuff in me, and I think I recognize some stuff in you. Do you want to talk to me about that? Because I really like what we've got going on, and I think we can get out of these weird, persistent arguments that we've been having by recognizing this stuff and choosing a different path. And he was like, I don't know if that sounds real, but I am open to having that conversation with you. Let's do it.
Now, what you're talking about there is something that I have found my audience is astounded by this concept, and I know it's going to resonate immediately because you already know it, is so many people are tracking for red flags of what's going to go wrong. What are the problems? What are the dangers? You just listed a green flag. You just listed a green flag of go ahead. It's, they can cover up red flags, but it's hard to fake the green flags. So for all the women at home who are waiting for a list of 20 green flags right now, could you list for them some of the green flags you saw in this man? I think ways he responded,
yes.
Phrases he said.
Yes.
Tell us how wonderful he is.
I can. And I want to preface this with, this was not a walking green flag kind of guy. I didn't see him and I wasn't like, that's it. I had a lot of hesitations because of the red flags. So I'm a normal person out in the dating field, just like them. But I noticed he was open to self-work. So that's good. He wasn't necessarily doing it, but he was open to it. He wasn't resistant when I would talk about it. He's someone, when I would cry or when I would be very upset about something, he never turned it back around on me. He never was like, you are silly for being upset about this. You're crazy. He didn't say anything like that. He let me have my emotions without trying to argue why it was silly or dumb or illogical. That was massive. That was massive. That just made me feel so accepted and understood, even if he didn't know what was going on. Somebody who just let me be upset without trying to fight it, you know? What else? Let me think. He was incredibly consistent with his communication. This man would not let a day go by without some sort of contact. I always cringe when I read my comments and somebody says they haven't talked to me for 2 weeks. I'm like, that might not be the type of person who's looking for the same kind of relationship that you are, you know? But my wonderful partner was looking for somebody that he wanted to share the days with. You know, he didn't want a 2 times a week visit kind of partner. He wanted somebody that he talked to all the time, which is what I was looking for too.
That one resonates with me because I had a comment just last night on one of my new Avoidant Man videos that just went viral. Someone popped in and said, "Hey, you know, I think my boyfriend and I might both be avoidant. We have the silent treatment, and it can go on for anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks where we give each other the silent treatment. 6 or 12 weeks. Like, okay.
I believe it.
Yeah, that's
I believe
avoidant.
it. I have the rare privilege, I think, of having a couple of friends, male and female, who seem to be exhibiting avoidant tendencies. They are in the barest of situationships, and they really seem perfectly content to just kind of hook up once every 2 or 3 months and not really connect between that. And I was like,
though?
wow. They're not exclusive.
Got it.
It's
so it's just like one of those things that really runs by when it runs by.
Totally. But it's weird, like when you know, deep intimacy is very terrifying for both of them. So having somebody that they can just kind of touch base with every now and then, it weirdly seems to be, I don't want to say it's working for them, but it's comfortable. And that's so strange for me to observe. But I know that there'll be anxious folks that try to get in relationships with people like that. And it's like, if that's the kind of relationship they're looking for, you might be better served looking elsewhere, you know?
100%. 100%.
So we today in an earlier podcast touched on this very interesting question, and I think it took us like an hour to answer it. But
Of yelling and stuff.
I
Yeah,
know, it was really fun.
It was a hot episode.
For context, I am, as Adam has labeled me, a recovering avoidant. Apparently, I've been working with Adam for almost 2.5 years. And, really, I came in a pretty bad spot. You know, I was going through a divorce. I was going through pretty serious changes in life. And we've been working with Adam together. In fact, here's a little story. I actually work with content creators. So I grow content creators. I worked with some big names. And when Adam came to counsel me, and then I said, "How much do I owe you, Adam?" And he goes, "I don't know." I just go, "Excuse me?" He goes, "I don't know how to charge people." And I said, "Look, I will start an agency specifically to work with you 6 months early." I pulled the string on that 6 months early so we can do this specifically at scale and work with content creators who can actually also support and spread this message. So I love this conversation. 2.5 years later, we've been working with Adam. I went through the divorce thing. I've healed this relationship I had with my daughter. We really kind of have this now good thing going on. We built up great friendship. And now he pulls in the middle of a podcast with me this whole, "Hey, you're avoidant." And go, wow.
You don't ever tell an avoidant person that they're avoidant.
I'm glad we finally
You
reached
really,
that.
that's trouble.
I'm finally glad.
It's years in.
And you know what? I let it sink in. I've accepted this. We've turned this into a topic of conversation, probably even a theme for this season of the podcast. And the reason I even got into this was because we were discussing, how does an avoidant man show love? Like, how does an avoidant man demonstrate love? Because what love means to you and what love means to me are probably two very different things. So what do you think? As a person hailing from like the other end of the spectrum, what does that even look like to you when somebody like me shows somebody like you love?
Well, at the risk of getting too philosophical, I wonder if love doesn't look and feel different for absolutely everybody. And so for that reason, it's very important that if we love someone, we have a conversation with them specifically about what it feels like for them. I have noticed, this is completely anecdotal, please don't take this as science, but I have noticed that the avoidant folks that I know seem to put a lot of stock in actions that show love. I'm not sure why that is, but for them, words seem difficult and they seem cheap. So I don't see a lot of avoidant folks. They'll be very hesitant to say I love you. They'll be very hesitant to label the relationship. But from my experience, an avoidant in love will still show up for you. They'll put some gas in your car. They'll be there talking when it feels safe to talk. So that's what I've noticed. I think for my own partner, when he was leaning avoidant, for him, love looked like showing up. Love looked like taking care of somebody, noticing what they need. For me, especially deep within my anxious patterns, love was words like I'm not going to leave you, like I love you, I care about you. And I hate to get too love languagey with it, but it does seem like the anxious folks do tend more toward very overt ways of showing that they love and verbal reassurance and confirmation that somebody's there. And for the avoidance, it really seemed more like show, don't tell, which is lovely. I think it's frustrating for us anxious folks, but I do think there's something kind of lovely in the idea that talk is cheap and actually being there and doing things is more of a way to show love.
So let me ask you this. This is something that we've been also pondering and discussing for quite a while. What role do masculinity and femininity actually have in this anxious avoidant dance? Because to me, what you're describing for of like, hey, talk is cheap, prove it and do it, and then it's real, that to me is a masculine quality. To me, this expression, especially a verbal expression of love, is a very feminine quality. And my girlfriend, when she tells me she loves me, I just go, oh. When my daughter tells me she loves me, I go, oh, I can, go like dig the yard. I can do whatever the hell you want. I can do the dishes. I can, stay up like till 3 a.m. doing stuff that doesn't bother me. It's when, somebody who says, oh, I'll do things for him. Like, why? I am more competent at this in the present time. It is an inefficient use of resources to do this. That is my response. And they go, no, it's because I love you. And I go, love. What is that exactly? You get that. Right. You get that expression. Is that the masculine and feminine coming out in maybe weird ways?
Yeah, I'm in a class right now that's talking a lot about masculine and feminine stuff. And unfortunately, I'm going to lose a lot of viewers here right now. I don't love the idea that the internet seems to really think that we need to show love and expressions in our matching. What am I trying to say? I want to be really careful. This is a tough
be
topic
daring.
lately. I am female, and so the internet seems to think that the only path to happiness for me is to deeply sit in my divine feminine and only show feminine characteristics. I am actually staunchly opposed to that because I think that assertive communication and showing someone that you care about them with acts, which people traditionally have thought of as masculine characteristics, I think are also very helpful and healthy for women to practice. In the same vein, I see men who are afraid to be verbal about their emotions that they feel, because traditionally that's not a masculine tendency. And that sucks, because that's such a healthy thing for boys and men to be able to do, you know? So that's my big disclaimer there. But we do live in a world that's very heavily masculinized and feminized on each side. And I know that men and boys are raised to play it a little closer to the chest, you know, like kind of don't be so forthcoming with your feelings verbally. So no matter how I feel about how much I want people to express both masculine and feminine tendencies, because that's a healthy human thing to do, we live in a world where those things are often discouraged for men. I mean, even with women, we're discouraged to be assertive in our communication. We need to be more cooperative and tiptoe lightly. And I don't love that. But it's kind of, if it's showing up in your relationship, it makes sense, because that's the world we live in, right?
So here's an idea I've been playing with lately, and I'd like to pitch it to you guys, is we do see the research shows that primarily avoidant attachment is mainly a male issue, and primarily anxious attachment is mainly a female issue. And you have the cross-pollination. You have very avoidant women. I work with a tremendous number of them in coaching. They're very different, typically, from their counterparts, especially anxious counterparts. But you've got the nice guy syndrome, and Dr. Robert Glover talks about that quite a bit. We're going to have him on the show probably tomorrow. So you do have those polarization pieces. But I wonder a bit if anxious attachment might be a hyper-feminization, where you are blocked from being able to exhibit any of the features of the masculine at all, in a healthy category. And I wonder if avoidance might be a hyper-masculinization, where you are blocked from fear, from embodying any of the feminine attributes.
Using the F word again. You really should stop. Stop using the F word when you call it talking about avoidance. It's not fear. Get over it.
Resistance to vulnerability, then.
Toughness.
There, toughness. But I wonder a bit if
Adam, I love that question.
Yeah, I wonder if that might be
I love that question. I don't know that I can speak to that. I think I'd have to do some more research on it. But it's very interesting that you bring that up, because it does kind of track. You know, it does kind of track.
So we do know through research.
That's all I got.
No, that's okay. We do know through research. For example, I was reading a research paper a couple weeks back, maybe 12 years ago. Research done on, is avoidant attachment a positive adaptation for the group that the avoidant person is connected to keep them safe? Yeah, you've seen this paper. Yes.
I have.
And there's a rebuttal paper to it, which was also very fascinating. But it does beg the question of, if these are survival adaptations that are with us for a reason, then might men in extreme circumstances hypermasculinize to protect resources, safety, and prioritize that, and then fixate entirely on resources and sacrifice as their means of speaking and giving love. We see this with the silent generation, for example, who raised the baby boomers, right? You will silently suffer and work 18 hours a day, but that will be your expression of love. We've had that in America for quite some time. But then might women in those extreme environments also become hyper approval seeking out of safety for themselves and their children? And we see that quite a bit as well. So I wonder a bit if it's a hyper masculinization and a hyper feminization, which blocks maybe a healthier middle ground that you might be able to achieve.
Well, this is actually a common topic of debate, and there's a joke in the legal industry which is called the search for the rational man. The rational man is a very commonly used legal term inside the court system, basically to explain what a rational person should be doing in situation X. If somebody's getting sued for riding a goat that's rubbed in olive oil while wearing a party hat, they might say this is not something a rational man might do, but the rational man is a very open subject that isn't really found. So I think that the search for the secure person is just about as a vague term as anything, because I keep hearing about this mysterious secure person, there's a secure quadrant, and there's this section of the population secure. Show them to me. Where do they hang out? How do I find them? What do they eat? How do I bait and catch them so that we can all live with a loving, secure partner? Tell me.
Ooh, so I have, Adam, I have thoughts on this.
Please, by all means,
Rick,
go
I
ahead.
had
all
that
you.
same question.
Let-
All right.
go ahead.
I had that same question, especially right when I got divorced. I was like, there's apparently something like 55%, maybe 60% of the population is secure. And I was like, I'm not seeing it. But research has shown that those folks tend to settle down early. So I'm not sure how old you guys are, but I wouldn't be surprised to find that a lot of our cohorts were kind of pairing up in their 20s easily. You know, these are those folks that kind of just found a spouse young or even in their mid 20s or late 20s, and everything fell into place and they're fine. They're not on the internet having relationship struggles that are so bad that they're asking strangers what to do. That's not to say that they're not having trouble, but these folks apparently in the secure quadrant, they can come to their partner and say, hey, that thing that you did the other day, that really hurt. And apparently they're paired with someone who goes, oh man, I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's sit down and talk about that. And I know that sounds like a myth, but there's a magical fifth quadrant that no one talks about called earned security. And that's where my partner and I live right now. And we didn't start out in the secure quadrant having wonderful conversations like that, but we learned how. And so when you say show me where they are, they're not, you know, they're not floundering around on the internet usually. They're off having good relationships. But those people are not that interesting to me. You know, I don't want to talk to people who just have a few problems. I want to talk to the lost souls who really want love and it's not working out for them. Those are the ones that I feel like I can really help.
And this is such a great topic because every coaching client or everybody who comes into my mentorship program, they always say the same thing that you do. You know, where are these people?
Yeah.
What cave do they live in? Is there a planet that I need? Is there a
mine
rocket
them
ship? Okay, yeah,
and
where do
sell
I
them?
go? How do I find them? Is there a trap that I can lay on my front lawn for a secure man? Do I put a bowl of potato salad to catch him?
Well, there is. You actually gave me an answer. It actually worked. So it was
correct.
surprising.
And
so.
I told you where to find them, and you
Oh.
did. But the two pools segregate out from each other so hard unconsciously. I call it the firefly problem.
Yes.
Where if you have secure attachment, you're a firefly over here who flashes blue, and you signal to other blue fireflies. And only blue fireflies can see the color blue. But if you're insecurely attached, you're over here in this pool flashing red, and all those fireflies can only see red. So when they cross, they don't even signal to each other. They just say, oh, there's a firefly who's not signaling at all. I'm going to go find someone red. Or I'm going to go find some blue. And the two pools are
Yes.
confused by each other and disinterested, sometimes intimidated, and they segregate out. It's like two different movies playing on the same screen, two different worlds interacting at different planes. They don't intersect. So you never really cross-pollinate that way.
What a perfect way to describe that. That was a beautiful metaphor. Well done. I love it.
You thought about this long and hard, I think.
Fireflies. You know, I hadn't seen fireflies till I was well into my 20s, so that really stuck out to
Same.
me. Yeah.
Yep, same here. I don't know why. I don't know why. There's something that is quite interesting here too, because it's not that evident at the beginning. While I do agree with the metaphor, it makes perfect sense. However, there is a period of time where the anxious and the avoidant seem to make this deadly match, and it gives people that butterfly effect, right? So the secure can actually be gravitating towards that because depending how secure they are, first of all, they may be looking for problems because they just don't have enough in their life, it seems. And they actually do tend to sometimes want to step in and help people and fix them and get attached that way to A or B. But also, it seems that there's a confusion point where I, as a avoidant butterfly or firefly, whatever the hell, can actually mimic security and then kind of attract and then all of a sudden like attach, and vice versa. An anxious person can mimic that security. And there is a point where probably in the first 3 months of dating, that confusion can be very persistent, and then things start clearing up, and this is when the trouble starts. So there's, of course, the anxious-avoidant dance that you guys are such good experts in. But there's also the point where, let's say, if you are an avoidant and your partner is secure, what happens is that you as the avoidant experiencing secure love are starting to create, have this interference where you go into some form of like disassociative or a panic state, and you go, I don't know if I love this person anymore. They're great and they're fantastic, but I don't know if I love them anymore because I don't have this thing. And then I feel, you feel your neurology changing, your dopamine's going down. You're like, I'm not motivated to be driven by this person to accomplish results. That must mean I do not love them. And there's this weird state where I think a lot of people who are close to breaking free of the cycle just drop out. Have you guys seen this? What's the cause of this?
Yeah, I've experienced it. I know that. I remember.
Tell us more.
And you nailed it with the time frame. When I started dating my partner, I was just reading nonstop about ways to make myself secure, and it was going well. I was feeling more calm. I was more in control of my emotions. I was becoming a safer place. And my partner was not doing those things. He was not reading the books. And so there he was still, deep in his avoidant patterning. And he did express to me one day, he was like, I don't feel that crazy in love feeling with you. He told me that. And I was really honored that he was comfortable enough to share that with me, because what a devastating thing to be able to tell the person that you're dating. And that's one of my videos that did quite well, I think, because it really resonates with a lot of avoidant men. It's like, I know this person is fantastic. I really care about them, but I don't feel that gotta be with them feeling. And so I must not be in love, right? We almost didn't make it through that period, and not because I was clinging and saying, please stay with me, I'll do whatever you want. I had reached a point where when he told me things like that, I would say, you do what you need to do for yourself. Like, I'm here, I love you, I care about you, but if that's what you need to do, you do what you need to do for yourself. And thank goodness he recognized that as a kind of love that he's like, I can really work with that. Here's somebody who's not pushing me. Here's somebody who's saying, I want you to feel good about whatever decision you make.
Well, and that's fantastic, because biochemically, that response that you gave him is perfect. Mm-hmm. Because with avoidant men, they're in two biochemical pathways. One is cortisol, all the time, hypercortisol. It blocks the reception of oxytocin. It blocks all these other biochemicals they should be receiving. They never enter the oxytocin pipeline of bonding that's supposed to replace the dopamine novelty bonding in that first 6 months. They never really enter that, which is why the I'm in love falls apart, is the dopamine novelty dies. So they start saying, well, I must not love you anymore like I thought I did. But when he brings that to you and he's afraid or nervous, or concerned,
or nervous,
or feels trapped, right? I'm training out of the fear word here with my avoidant friend. But when he brings that to you and he's concerned about how you'll react, he's concerned you're going to pull out the shackles and say, well, you're staying with me anyway, and now you'll live in my basement, But when he's afraid you're going to do the chronic anxious thing of you will never escape from my clutches, when he's afraid of that, and instead you say, you know what? You've shared something with me. I can receive it. I don't want you to be trapped, and I don't want you to be unhappy. So if you need that, do what is fair to you. That fairness and that lack of clutching and the freedom and safety, the S word, all of this comes together. And what he can receive is number one, vasopressin, because you have now helped him resolve fear and cortisol and stress and cortisol. So you vasopressin bonded him, which is enormously important for men, and especially avoidant men. They have more receptors for it at that point. But you've also oxytocin bonded him for the first time. It's like you took out a syringe of oxytocin, jammed it in his neck, and said, it's okay if you don't love me. And he's like, oh, suddenly I do love you.
Does not compute.
Yeah.
And that's
it
such
was,
a miracle.
Adam, it was that day. It was after that conversation.
Yes.
He was like, never mind. This is definitely love.
That's the conversation.
Right,
that's the conversation that shows them they can love you, is because you have given them that freedom and that love, and they experience biochemically, number one, but you also prove beyond a shadow of a doubt to them that you are their person. You are someone they can trust. They cannot trust anyone else on the planet except you, and you are the one person that makes them feel good. You become their first love, and they do. Like that day, did he propose to you at that moment?
That took a little longer, but yeah, yeah, that was a huge turning point for us, for sure.
Let me add you this interesting point too, because I've actually gone through a very similar experience with my girlfriend too, and we actually negotiated this, and I'm going to stress this term, negotiated this in advance during a very early stages of kind of communication, mapping out the relationship of how we wanted to go. I said, she asked me, what will you need? What will you need in a relationship? And I say, this is a fantastic question. I said, I cannot have pity in a relationship. Pity to me is toxic. If you feel bad for me, this is it. I am out. Do not ever dare to pity me. And because what you're doing is you're taking away my right to evolve, to change, to learn, and to experience things. I'm inevitably going to do things that will be not worthy of a relationship, things that you will not be proud of, things for which you cannot respect me, in which case I need you to tell me. I need you to inform me that this behavior is not acceptable for these reasons. And then I need you to hold your line and give me the space and the time to figure out how to deal with this. Do not baby me. Do not pity me. Do not, walk away on me. Just say, hey, this was good. This was not good. Here's why. You need to fix this. I trust you to do this, but until you fix this, this is not going to happen. This is not going to continue. And this is the rule we've put in at the very, very beginning. And to me, it's a huge relief because I know we can fall back on this.
And Rikki, doesn't this sound exactly like an avoidant man who has healed and done that work, so he knows what he needs to find that love? This is exactly what a man
You've
after
done good work,
avoidance
Adam.
should sound
You've done
like.
good work.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, we talked earlier about green flags that women should look for. This right here, that's a perfect model. If a man can come to you and tell you that clearly that's what he's looking for, and then you trust her, you trust your partner to be the person that tells you when something's wrong, and then you will diligently work and apply that and fix it.
I do not trust her for this. I do not. That is not the correct term. The reason why is because I trust that we have made this deal, and that if we were to run up against this issue, then I can come back and say, hey, remember this agreement we've had? I would like us to use this now. Because even if you forgot, I cannot expect her to remember everything we've ever talked about. I expect her to be a woman who's, involved and in her range of emotions. So if she transgresses that, I now have a safety barrier that can say, hey, we have a plan in mind. I am now invoking this plan. Let's go back to this, which we've agreed upon early on in calm stage, and let's use this now.
So you trust her to be a woman who honors her contracts.
Correct.
There we go. There's the trust element. That's what avoidant men are looking for.
Well, one of my very best friends is a woman who leans avoidant, and she gave me the best piece of advice when my partner and I were new and trying to figure out how this was going to go. And she told me he wants someone who will hold him accountable. And I thought that was nuts. I was like, there's no way he wants to be held accountable. He's going to fight me. And she said, give it a try. She goes, if you notice his behavior that's not working for you and you speak up about it, see how he reacts to that. Just give it a shot for me and report back. And it was mind-blowing how well he responded to. I mean, it was like a weekend. I think he's got a boat. So he took his boat, we didn't live together. So he just left. His boat was gone. He took a few of his friends with him, and he didn't tell me like, hey, I'm going to be gone for 3 days on the boat with the guys. When you're in a committed relationship with somebody, it's kind to at least give them a heads up when you're going to be gone for a few days. So when he got back, old Rikki would have been like, oh, I'm so glad you're back. Where'd you go? But new Rikki, who was suddenly taking the advice from this very wise avoidant friend of mine, said, hey, it really kind of stung when you just disappeared. That doesn't feel like respectful behavior to me. I would really like in the future a heads up. If you want to have like a healthy relationship with me, that's what I'm going to need from you. And he was like, yeah, he's like, actually, now that you put it like that, that was really disrespectful. And I'll give you a heads up in the future. And I went back to her and I was like, oh my God, he liked it. He liked it when I put my foot down. It was such a revelation. And I've been trying to do that ever since.
Let's talk about this a little bit more, because there's a very common misconception on the internet that this is, and I'm going to call the term and then question the term, simpy behavior. A woman telling her what she wants is you being a simp. Let's disaggregate this, okay? everybody talks about the fact that women test men. What about the tests that men do for women? How do men test women's principles? And you guys are professionals. I'd love to hear your opinion. Rikki, please, if you could share how men...
Wait. Now you've got me in my head. Was he testing me with the boat thing? I think I passed, if it's
You
so.
certainly did.
Sounds like
you did.
Yeah. The testing. Are you talking about conscious testing or unconscious testing? Because I think there's a difference.
Either one, but let's talk about both because both matter.
Okay. I think I'm imagining myself as if I were back on the dating field. Conscious testing, I can't really get on board with because there's something ingenuine about it that I don't love, you know? I think if we're specifically saying, I'm going to do this bad thing and see how they react to that, I don't love that because people aren't playthings, you know? We're really not. I think unconscious testing, which happens constantly. I mean, even now in my what I consider a very healthy relationship, we're probably unconsciously testing each other, pushing boundaries just a little bit. And I don't know if that's our inner child pushing to make sure that they'll support us. But either way, if in these tests that we're constantly performing, and this is from an attachment perspective, we unconsciously perform tests to see if our partner's going to be there for us, if they're going to hold us accountable, if they're going to accept us when we're not exactly put together. What do you think about that, Adam? The unconscious testing is an attachment thing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a couple things. So I've been married for 15 years with my wife, and we got 5 kids together. I would definitely say that I test my wife at times to see if
Consciously or unconsciously?
Probably both.
Consciously?
Probably both.
Oh, wow.
Probably
Okay.
both.
Okay.
I think after 15 years, and not in a malicious, I'm going to test this woman kind of way, but, you know, I test to see where she's at. I test to see where her heart's at. For me, one of the biggest indicators is our shared religious faith. So is she pursuing that, right? Is she diligently pursuing her religious faith that gives her values? I can't step in and make her follow an ethical code, but is she diligently doing the thing that indicates she is deeply in line with that, so then I can trust that code that she follows, right? The contracts. Can I trust that she's a woman who honors her contracts, for example, in the capacity? And then I test plenty by giving her plenty of room to betray me, in essence. I don't say, go do this thing and set her task and then, you know, like, and try, I knew you were going to, I don't do that. But I give her freedoms that other men may say, you let your wife go out of the house while you watch the kids and you don't ask for exact plans and travel plans where she's going. No. On Fridays, I say, hey, you know what? I'm watch the kids for 5-6 hours. You go do what you need to do. Get away from the kids. Go breathe. By all means, please. I don't even know where you're going. Just go. Go have some ice cream or something. And she leaves. And I watch the kids for a good 4 or 5 hours. She comes home at lunchtime. And she walks in and she's got, you know, she comes home and tells me what she did. And she's, I had ice cream and here's coffee. And I'm like, oh, cool. She went and had a good time. And she came back and she was pretty transparent about where she was. And I can back that up by knowing that she's following her moral code and her religious faith. So I know that this is not a woman who's going to go out and, you know, cheat on me with some random guy for 4 hours and come home with a coffee. I can back up all of those things. So those are tests that I can do in that capacity. And again, I want to stress, this isn't me, you know, measuring and guessing if my wife, I would not have married her if there was a doubt in my mind, but once in a while it is good to revitalize that and see if they are voluntarily open with you about things, voluntarily transparent. I think that's my answer. Andrey, how do you test women?
Great question. Well, again, I'm in the early stages, so my first tests were being exceptionally straightforward. This is what I'm looking for. This is the timeline. These are my mechanisms. What are your mechanisms? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And we went for like a month of back and forth, just essays and essays and essays and text, figuring this out. That to me was my test. And then I also did what's called the checkpoint thing. Hey, in order for us to move forward, we need to do this and this and this. It doesn't matter how long it takes us as long as we're moving towards that goal. But the next step isn't going to happen unless this and this and this happens. You know, unless you meet my daughter and you guys establish a good relationship together. And I'm happy to help you guys do that. But if that isn't going to happen, the next thing can't happen either. So just having these very clear expectations does help me. But also, frankly, you start off a relationship with too many rules. That's something that I've seen in every situation. You have too many rules, you have too many boundaries, and none of them are flexible. It's always like that. Like, you come in, you know exactly what you want, you know exactly what you'll want for the next 50 years of your life together till you die, and nothing's ever going to change. But then as you start living together, you kind of starting grinding together, as you're starting to spend time together, these things kind of, you kind of wear away the corners and you find the compromise, and you kind of see where you guys meet and where you guys don't meet. So it's really a test of, you say you have this rule. What if we don't do it? And see how we both feel at the same time. Like the ability to have
I like that.
flexible boundaries. Like, sure, like, hey, this isn't I'm going to come in and do something horrible to you and tell me if you stop me. Like, that's not it. But like the little rules like that you haven't put in place, like, why are they there? Like, and they're to me an opportunity. They're an opportunity for a communication. Hey, in this case you did this, but in this case you did that, and they're contradictory a little bit. Can you tell me a bit more about why both were okay in your mind, because they don't make sense in my mind. So that's the little test that I do, and they're not conscious, but they're not subconscious either. I call them they're semi-conscious, where you kind of use your intuition, but an exploration. What do you think about that, Rikki?
I love that you said this, because it feels like a very avoidant perspective, if I may. I know myself and my audience would tend to get into relationships not having enough rules and boundaries, to where the more avoidant folks who I talk to have a way that they think it needs to be, and if it doesn't follow that exactly, they're I won't say afraid, they're feeling like it might not be the right place for them, right? The anxious folks are the opposite with that. We go in a total blank slate. We're like mirrors, like whatever you want, whatever this setup, I will do that and you will love me for it. And so for anxious folks, I tend to push more in the opposite direction, that they would be better served by getting clear with themselves about what they want and speaking up about it. And then maybe testing, not necessarily in a conscious way, but testing. I've made this thing very verbally clear that I want. Now it's time for me to see what the other person does with that. That's like with the boat thing.
To both of your points, anxiously attached people, they go in feeling like a blank slate, but as you just said, then they have to discover for themselves. Well, I think anxiously attached people actually hide their desires from their own mind.
It's like flippant archaeology, guys.
They cover it up.
It's like coming in and there's a field
100%.
and you're like digging and you're like, where are you? Where are you? And then you're like brushing
Adam,
these
we're
things
not
off.
blank.
100%.
I want to clarify, we're not blank slates. We have all kinds of needs and desires, but for us, we wipe the slate and we show somebody a blank slate. Like, look, I can be whatever you want me to be.
Yes,
when
the fake
really
blank.
we start, the fake blank slate, because then we start feeling upset when those things that are deep down aren't getting fulfilled.
And I think that's why avoidant people in that category, once they do their healing and become healthy and fulfilled in that way, they value the straight up front contract of, this is what I expect, this is what you expect, and then let's test those and see if that's actually what we want, because it's not, as you said, archaeology anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, also then over time we learn, like as an avoidant partner, or formerly avoidant partner, recovering, whatever the hell you want to call it, we learn. We know to ask in advance. It's like, babe, I see you've been in the kitchen for 2 hours. How about we take a break? Oh, no, it's okay. It's like, yet, but I insist, because logically speaking, you spending 2 hours here must mean you're probably exhausted. Well, no, I'm happy. It's like, let us escort each other to the couch and have a conversation, because I would really like to right now. And then, they sit down and just go, and you're like, called it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're out.
That's familiar.
So
We take,
sleep.
it takes a lot to shake an anxious person out of their giving and serving mode. It really does. 'Cause it's so safe for us, in the same way that it probably takes a lot to shake a more avoidant person out of their solitary mode. I kind of have to drag my partner out of the garage sometimes when he's been isolating himself for hours
The
upon
man cave.
hours. Mm-hmm.
Lure him out
And
with
same
treats.
with me.
Treats help. Little
Treats?
little treats, like if you lay them out,
Yeah.
then he'll follow them.
But the treat is a relationship contract, and that
Food
makes him feel
helps.
safe, so he just
No,
follows the
we
contract.
also like actual food.
Yes, my partner loves the actual food. That's
There you go.
a faster
Back to
way
the
do it,
potato
for
salad
sure.
under a box trap to find a secure person. There
Yeah.
you go.
Only with steak.
Only with steak. Avoidant men love steak. Take
do.
note, ladies at home. Avoidant men prefer steak. You will trap them that way. So one thing that I have discovered quite a bit is that as much as anxiously attached people both overwhelmingly crave and at the same time just despise avoidant men tend to be either confused by or concerned about anxious women. I have very rarely run across examples of avoidantly attached men who really want to badmouth anxious women as much. Maybe once in a while when they've been really fatigued and exhausted, they may complain, but I don't really see them bad-mouthing those women. As an avoidant man, first, could you help enlighten us? Why is that the case?
Why would I care to badmouth anybody, right? In reality, the key to the avoidant type of behavior is the focus on responsibility, right? So this is, well, when you say fear, it's like we're not fearful of stuff. We just feel responsible for taking care of the people who we care about, plus also of our ability to provide for them. So if somebody went and turned out to be a disappointment to us because they weren't able to communicate with us, that's not their fault. It's not even, doesn't make them bad. They're just a person who was not in the same mindset. So spending time being angry at them is a waste of resources. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my sleep. It is anxious behavior. It is something that is toxic. And there's many billions of people in the world who do not care about me, nor do I care about them. So they just go into the category of that, and they can live their life a little further away from me. There's no point in hating. Like, hating is a toxic thing that is going to make you weak.
So, Rikki, I'll ask you then. If you're like me, you probably have a flood of anxiously attached women coming in asking, how do I get my avoidant man back, right? How do I get him back? Hearing that, what do you tell them?
Well, I actually wanted to throw my, what would I say? How would I say that? I have an answer to why the anxious people are so angry at the avoidant folks. And I think it has a lot to do with a difference that the two sides see in the onus of responsibility to take care of somebody, right? To the anxious person, somebody deep in their anxious patterning, it's other people's responsibility to take care of me and how I feel. And so when you get someone who abandons that responsibility, you're upset at them because you are supposed to take care of the way that I feel, and you failed me and you didn't do that. Let's go back to our shrink ray. This is where the anxious ambivalent attachers originate as children whose parents are failing them occasionally. And one of the responses to that is anger. Anger is supposed to be a thing that motivates the parent to see that the child needs extra attention and hopefully draws them back to them, but it backfires spectacularly when we're adults, not dealing with parents. We're dealing with autonomous individuals who don't owe us that care, especially if they're not married or it's a shorter term relationship. And the avoidance side, they don't have that. The onus of responsibility for them is everybody take care of themselves. So, okay, I see this person, they didn't take care of my needs. That's just a person who isn't going to take care of any needs for me. That's fine. You do you, I'll do me, whatever. But for the anxious folks, the romantic partner, the failed romantic partner, becomes a parent who didn't care for them. And that anger, evolutionarily speaking, makes sense, but it's certainly not very helpful.
Love that answer. What then do you tell women when they say, how do I get him back? What do you tell them?
Well, how do I get them back is challenging, because it's my answers have been frustrating them lately, because I think it's super important that we let go of the desire to convince people to be with us. I think it's super important that we accept that other people get to choose what situation that they're going to be in. And that's really hard for somebody who's in love and the only thing they can think of is a way to bring that person close to them. But that takes away their partner's ability to say, I also get to choose what situation I want for myself, and you might not be it. It's a hard pill to swallow, but that's tough. The only true way to entice somebody to get back together with you is to become the very best version of yourself that you can be. Become a healthy person that they would want to be around, but try to do that without taking away their ability to choose for themselves.
I like that answer a lot because it brings the locus of control back to you, and you can actually have a proper relationship with somebody, but exchanging it in a kind of a fair and organized manner that builds a relationship, as opposed to throwing it at them and saying, why didn't you catch it? It's like,
right.
There's a really funny meme on the internet or a viral video, and it's there's a girl and a boy standing in front of a pond, and it's supposed to be like one of those like fall and I'll catch you things, and the boy is standing behind the girl just ready to catch her as she just falls forward right into the pond. It's like, what the hell?
Fall the wrong way just to really test him.
This is this exactly, like, what are you doing and where are you going? And just the shock value of that relationship is exactly the rendition of the anxious-avoidant dance, but in real life. Now, one thing that you guys both talk about, and this is what you guys both teach, is the communication patterns between anxious and avoidant. Adam, I know you're building a course around that. And Rikki, I know you're writing a book about that. I would love to hear a little bit of kind of the underpinnings of them and what you're really looking to do and what you're looking to teach. Because both audiences, I think, would be very interested in not just learning about this, which is nice, but actually fixing this.
Sure. Rikki, why don't you go ahead first? Because I'd love to hear about your new book.
Sure. My new book, it's almost ready. It will be here before summer of 2024 for sure, but I'm aiming for spring. It's not spring yet in Alaska here where I live, so that's why I get a little more time.
Oh my God.
I am in Alaska, yeah. We can come back to that too. So in my book, my new book, which will be called Anxious and Avoidant, Healing the Dynamic, I really try to dig into how those harmful communication patterns come about, what both sides really want to say, and then what kind of new things that we can say so that we can connect with each other instead of missing everybody's signals and the underlying messages.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic.
So is there like a pre-order? How do we get hold of this masterpiece?
The pre-order's not ready yet. But if you're listening and you're excited about this, follow me on Instagram. I am Anxious Hearts Guide. And the announcement will be all over the page when that drops. Probably, I'm thinking maybe the end of March or sometime in April.
Well, then actually we might have a link just in time, depending when this episode airs.
Oh, yeah.
So, we might have a link. If there is no link, please make sure you follow Rikki, because if you're having this struggle, you can make your life so much easier by just simply knowing the patterns and having a solution. Like, the story that I shared. I had a solution that I learned from Adam, and I implemented, and it damn worked. And I'm just sitting there being like, what the hell? It was easy.
Yeah.
It was easy. Like, just do it.
It feels like magic, doesn't it?
It does. Like, what the hell? And it's like things are just clicking and whatnot. It's fantastic. So strongly encourage you to do that. Yep. Adam, what are you building? Because we talked about this. Adam and I work together. I'm actually going to be helping him craft the course.
Yep.
I'm really excited for this because now obviously my experience can also play into it, and can do some product testing. But what are you going to be talking about in this course you're building?
Yeah, so I've noticed that my audience is very, very largely female and looking for understanding about avoidant men. I'm not going to be building a Let's Bash on Avoidant Men course. It's going to be geared more toward, working title is How to Love an Avoidant Man. And not just how to give him love and make him feel good, but how you yourself can live in a relationship as you are loving him. two of the biggest points that I found that my audience is most interested in and that I want to serve them in is, number one, how to get your own needs met in a relationship when your partner might be avoidant. And Rikki, as you know, that's a challenge and a half of how can I share my needs in a way that he won't run away from, feel offended by, be nervous about, feel overwhelmed by, right? How to have needs without smothering him. And the second thing that they've been wanting to learn is how to get him to open up then in return in a way that isn't, to Andrey's point, that doesn't feel like weakness to him, doesn't feel too overwhelming, doesn't feel pointless, but how to get him to open up in a way that's proactive and healthy for him, where he feels the benefit of that opening up and he begins to love that emotional intimacy that the two of you foster together. Those are the two key points that I really want to hit with this course. So hopefully we will have that link below as well. If any of this is not linked, her book, my course, drop a comment and say, where's my link? And we will get that for you very, very quickly, because we want all these resources to put into your guys' hands.
And I do want to point out that both Rikki and Adam have a tremendous amount of resources on their channels. They have books, they have like all of this stuff that's out there, and they keep producing more and more. Why do you guys bother? What is it that you're trying to do with all this time? Because it's not cheap and it takes a lot of energy. Rikki, why do you do this?
Well, I don't know about you, Adam, but I'm trying to fix my parents' marriage. No, that's what I always joke to myself. Like, I think we get into this stuff because it means a lot to us. I haven't met a single creator in the attachment or relationship realm who isn't coming to this from a place of pain and wanting the world to not feel the same pain that we did. You know, I mean, is that your story too?
I hear that. I have 5 children, and I look around at the world as it is, and I say, who are they going to marry? And in this crazy, how are they going to find a partner? So you're trying to fix your parents' marriage, and that's wonderful. I'm trying to build my children's marriage and my grandchildren's marriage. I want there to be wonderful marriages available for healthy, loving people so that families can build forward into the future. My goal is, the next 200 years of families is what I would love to help build. And Andrey's on that journey with me, helping do that.
That's right. We've set a goal for Adam's brand. We want 1 billion secure people in the world.
1 billion served.
That's right. 1 billion secured by, what does it say? Is it the next 10 years or 12 years?
10, 12.
10 years.
We'll figure it out.
Let's say 10, just for the hell of it. In 10 years, we want to build 1 billion secure people. That's a good goal. That's a good goal. I have a last and final question for you, Rikki. Why are you in Alaska? It's cold.
Oh, it is cold. It is cold. I was married once upon a time, and he got a job up here. So I'm originally born and raised in Idaho, and I thought, Alaska, that kind of sounds like Idaho. I can get on board with a place like that. And I've been here for 8 years now. So
is it true that it's the most avoidant state in the Union?
Oh, I haven't heard that, but we truly don't care about the entire rest of the United States, if that's what you're asking. It's like our news. I've noticed when I travel to the lower 48, the news cares about the whole rest of the country. Our news does not. We're just like, okay, somebody got eaten by a grizzly yesterday, and there's a sale at the grocery store. That's it. I kind of love it. I feel very disconnected from the happenings of the rest of the world up here.
It's exactly how I imagine Alaska. Somebody was eaten by a bear. There's a sale on the way, on the grocery store, and the bear's waiting for you at the grocery store. Right. So come join us.
Old man Jenkins got kicked by a moose. Right. More
right.
11.
Right.
So
if I'm very out of touch with the rest of the world, that's why. But I kind of love it.
Fantastic.
Great things really do take seclusion, I must say. So actually, Adam's also living in a village and in the field, talking about attachment, and he's really, he really is focused on this stuff. He spends a crazy amount of time in his channels and his content, and I do notice that it does pay off because it is something that's a very deep and spiritual field that requires a ton of introspection. And if you're not spending the time, there's a lot of very trivial advice. It's very kind of like, touch and go, but it doesn't really get to the core of the issue. And I love this conversation because we did get to the core of the attachment issue. So thank you both for joining us. I also want to thank Rugged Legacy Grooming Supply, who is our sponsor for this episode. Also linked below. Great beer stuff, great hair
If
stuff.
you don't want to look like a grizzly bear that eats people, use Rugged Legacy.
That's right. If you want to have secure attachment, buy Rugged Legacy now. So,
Oh my goodness, I'm going to be borrowing that for my podcast.
Oh,
That's
please.
what we're going to. That's how we're going to. That's how we'll talk about all our sponsors. If you want to be securely attached, buy these bed sheets.
That's
by all
correct.
means, why don't I send you
That's
some Rugged
amazing.
Legacy? We'll get that going.
Now, is that a men's product? My partner would probably love it.
Well, it is actually. So we'll send you some Rugged Legacy.
Is
It
it?
is a men's product. Yeah.
Okay,
and
please do.
absolutely. And then if you guys want to affiliate for them too, we'll get you guys all hooked up. So it'll be fun. There's also
Awesome.
Woman's Salt Scrub, which you definitely need in Alaska.
Oh, I would like that. Yes,
Sold.
I would like that.
Can we take note of that? Please make sure we send these guys some fun stuff.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, guys, this was a wonderful episode. Thank you for listening to I Wish You Knew. Subscribe, comment, follow us. Please tell us how we did. Please ask Rikki and Adam questions. Please rant at me as the avoidant. I can take it because I do not give a damn. And let's see what conversations we can have. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.